Welcome everyone. Welcome. Today is Friday, so you know what that means. It means Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott. This is what we wait for every week, right, Brianna?
It is, yes. So happy to be here. So happy to be here. How was your week, Scott?
Good week. Lots of good crypto stuff this weekend. I am diving headfirst into yield farming and building yield farms. So more to come on that later in the show, but it's fun and it's really exciting. How about you?
That is exciting. It's been a good week. It has flown by like always. And I just want to thank our viewers today. I've been thinking about that because this is getting to be a lot of fun. And just want to thank everybody who's dedicated to showing up and look forward to more of it. And if you haven't yet, or if you're viewing this at a later time, please take the time and subscribe to both Scott's channel, Crypto for the Rest of Us, and my channel, Purified People. We do have some guests coming up in a couple of weeks that we're really excited about. So you won't want to miss that. And yeah, thanks again for being here. And I'm excited about my article today. One of my articles I was really excited about. So it wasn't very difficult this week to decide on what I was going to present.
Oh, good. Yeah, I got caught up in a huge rabbit hole about this MEV issue. And it got brought up in last week's call, our show. And it was funny because I was rewatching that part, and I didn't know a lot about it, in the detail about it. And I'm like, I'm going to figure out what this is. And I did. I went down the rabbit hole. So I decided the best way to do this was to write a blog article. So when I do that, when I get into writing mode, I go into research mode, and I remember how fun that is. So I've been diving into lots of detailed articles. I've been listening to different podcasts, all on this MEV problem with Ethereum. So I thought I might talk about it today, but I'm not quite ready because I really want to do it in a presentation mode. So I'm going to put a little presentation together about MEV because I do think that looking at some graphics, some graphs and some pictures might help, because this is an area that a lot of people don't understand. I didn't understand it. I brought it up in our King's call yesterday a little bit, and Brian didn't know much about it. A lot of people don't know a lot about this, and it's just so people, if they're wondering a little about what it is, so it's basically part of the Ethereum or any blockchain that uses smart contracts. So not necessarily Bitcoin, although this can happen in proof of work blockchains too, but it really is prevalent in Ethereum and other smart contract type of blockchains. And what it is that the before, so I really assumed that what happened was when you send out a transaction, it just goes from your wallet and then goes into the blockchain. The validators don't do much. They just kind of look at it and it's software. I thought it was all software based and, it just runs through, gets put into a block and gets sent into the blockchain. Well, that's not what happens. There is this thing called a mempool, which is this memory area, this area that all transactions kind of queue up in before it even gets to the validators to go on the blockchain. And what happens is that if you're anyone can actually access this mempool, and what happens is people that write bot software can actually go in here and look and start plucking out transactions out of this mempool and then trying to extract value from that. That's why it's called maximum value extraction, MVE. And it's a normal part of things. What's happening is they're having bot wars and they're having gas wars, and the things they're doing to try to extract value, because it's basically an arbitrage issue, and I'll talk more about that. But basically, they can buy and sell and try to make a little bit of profit off different price levels in these decentralized exchanges, right? All this activity is happening before your transaction even hits the blockchain, and so it takes time. A lot of times it bumps up the gas prices, and really is not really good for the end users in any way, and it can get worse if this is allowed to happen. And so. But the good news is smart people are working on this, and so there are going to be some solutions for it. But I'm going to go into pretty deep about what this is, and kind of show people like what happens in this process. And if left unchecked, it's just going to make all of our us as end users our experience. It degrades the experience, and so. And then the other part about this, and this is the part that I don't have a lot of data on. But what came up last week was the article that basically said that part of this process, what's happening is that because of the Tornado Cash issue and that the U.S. government has sanctioned any transactions that have gone through Tornado Cash, these bots in this can actually scan that out and find those transactions before it even hits the blockchain and do whatever they want with them. They can discard them, they can do whatever. I'm not sure what is happening with them. But that alone, again, is another centralized function. That who's making that decision? Well, the U.S. government is. And now we're just taking what we all thought was this pure decentralized network. And there's a lot of centralized, what some people call vectors, centralized vectors that are embedded inside of our blockchains, our public decentralized blockchains that we don't even really understand or know about. So it's a fascinating little rabbit hole to dive down, and I'll go into a lot more detail and sort of explain what's being done to potentially solve this, which is the good thing. And I believe we will. But it's just something that isn't talked about a lot. But yeah, so.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah.
So
I look forward to that presentation, and pictures will help.
I think pictures will help a little bit. They always do. They always do. Yeah, but other than that, I just had a hodgepodge of articles, to come across. I'm really curious to see if we have a couple that we both put in here today, because there was some big news that hit this week. It wasn't that important, but it was big, and I'm curious if we hit upon it. But we're not going to know. But yeah, let's dive in if you want.
Yeah, let's
You're
do
up
it.
first, always.
I'll share my screen.
Oh, wrong button. Wrong button. Oh yeah, I have to. When you get your screen up, okay, good. Usually I get this figured out before, but we didn't do it. Let's see. I think that should work. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, let me know if you can see my screen. It looks like we're loading over here.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good?
We are good.
Okay, so the reason I'm sharing this article, I actually read through this whole article, and the title of it is Stop Drinking the Elite's Kool-Aid. And this is actually an article by the president of El Salvador. He wrote this article. And I didn't realize this when I first read it. I was reading through it, and then I got to the end and I was like, oh, okay, the president actually wrote this article. It was on Bitcoin Magazine. I thought that was really cool. And for those of you who don't know, El Salvador is the first country to officially legalize Bitcoin and consider it its currency. And that was, I'm trying to remember, it was, I believe, the beginning of this year, I want to say. Does that sound right to you, Scott?
I think so. Sounds right.
And
Maybe a
so it
little
was
longer
really
than that.
interesting to see. It was really interesting to see it from this perspective of the president himself. And I'll be completely honest that I might have been drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit because I've seen headlines as to how, and I haven't read into it, but I have just seen the headline itself, and I haven't thought much about it. But if someone were to ask me what's happening with El Salvador, I probably would have up to this point said, oh, it doesn't seem like things are going so well, but I don't know why. But that's what I saw in the headlines. So now we're getting it straight from the president himself as to how this is all going down. And it's kind of a long article, and I do want to read through it though. It's all kind of important words. And
Okay.
if it gets too long, then I'll just stick to this one article for mine today. But we can stop and talk about different points too. And so these are the words from the president. He says, "Remember those words as they will be engraved in the history of money," and that is that El Salvador is the first to accept Bitcoin. But as of today, in these early times, opinions are stuck in the buckets of being a bold move, a smart move, a dumb move, or simply a gamble. Of course, it was none of the above. It was the only obvious move, the only logical one for those who understand. The real question is not if other countries are going to adopt Bitcoin, but when. We are so early in this paradigm shift that a logical common sense move is controversial. It has many people cheering it on and many, many detractors. So on this occasion, I will not analyze the supporters, but the detractors. And he separates these detractors into three separated groups. Number one, the ones who genuinely think it was the wrong decision. Number two, the ones who think it is a good decision, but for the wrong reasons. And number three, the ones who are afraid of our decision. Now the interesting part is that the first and second groups exist mostly because of the third. Why? Because the most vocal detractors, the ones who are afraid and pressuring us to reverse our decision, are the world's most powerful elites and the people who work for or benefit from them. They used to own everything, and in a way they still do. The media, the banks, the NGOs, the international organizations, and almost all of the governments and corporations in the world. And with that, of course, they also own the armies, the loans, the money supply, the credit ratings, the narrative, the propaganda, the factories, the food supply. They control international trade and international law. But their most powerful weapon is the control of the truth. And they are willing to fight, lie, smear, destroy, censor, confiscate, print, and do whatever it takes to maintain and increase their control over the truth and everything and everyone. Just think about the hundreds, if not thousands, of articles about how El Salvador's economy was supposedly destroyed because of its Bitcoin gamble, about how we are inevitably heading to default, that our economy has collapsed, and that our government is bankrupt. Most of you have surely seen this, right? Right? I can vouch for that. They're all over every financial publication, every major news organization, every newspaper in the world, all the credit rating agencies, and all the international financial organizations are saying the same thing as if it were Inquirer. But is any of it true? Well, you just need to read their articles and listen to their experts saying that all of this has happened after El Salvador lost around $50 million because of Bitcoin's plummeting price on exchanges. What he points out here is and you've pointed this out too, Scott, since we are not selling any Bitcoin, the statement is obviously false. But for the sake of making a more profound analysis, let's say it was entirely true, which of course it's not, but bear with me. And right there, it made me think of you, Scott, and I think about it whenever I see it,
Yeah.
that just because the market's gone down, it doesn't mean that you have lost anything until you realize those losses, right?
Right.
And vice versa. You don't make anything until you say that until you accept the wins.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to say, really, a whole country's economy was destroyed by a $50 million loss. Yes, El Salvador is a relatively poor country, But in 2021 alone, we produced $28 billion in products and services, pushing the idea that a $50 million loss, less than 0.2% of our GDP, would destroy or even put our country's economy in trouble as far more than stupid it is revealing. What he points out is that you would think that economic geniuses at Bloomberg, Forbes, Fortune, Financial Times, he goes on to name a few others, would have enough analysts and editors well versed in these topics to tell them not to publish that nonsense. You would think these absurd articles wouldn't pass those editorial boards, but they do. And sometimes they even get a very large space, like a full page spread in the New York Times. So the argument that we have lost $50 million worth of Bitcoin is false, because we simply have not sold any Bitcoin. And if we were to accept that argument as true, then it would be ridiculous to conclude that our economy of $28 billion per year will go bankrupt or into default because of a 0.2% loss in 1 year, when in 2021, our economy grew 10.3%, or by $4 billion. This is using the IMF's own numbers. And even if you want to accept that absurd argument as true, he says, which would mean you ignore math or basic logic, still you would have to ask yourself why these worldwide media corporations would give so much time and space to such a small country like El Salvador. Were they talking about El Salvador before? Did they care about what happened in our country? Did they report that $37 billion that the previous government stole from our country's treasury? Ask yourself these questions. A few years ago, did you know where El Salvador was located on a map? Did you know the name of the previous president of El Salvador? And did you know about the failed economic policies? The answer to those questions added to the incredible absurdity of portraying in hundreds of serious financial publications that an economy that produces $28 billion in 1 year would go bankrupt for a debatable $50 million loss. This is the proof one should need to see that they are trying to fool you. In fact, these are the real numbers, which are public information and can be found and double-checked quite easily. In 2021, our GDP rose 10.3%, income from tourism rose 52%, employment went up 7%, new businesses up 12%, exports up 17%, energy generation up 19%, energy exports went up 3,291%, and internal revenue went up 37% without raising any taxes. And this year, the crime and murder rate have gone down 95%. And those are all great numbers. And what he points out is they are real numbers and they're facts that can't be destroyed. The only number that can be changed with their rhetoric is our bond prices, since they depend mostly on the official narrative and the credit ratings of their agencies. More truth than the truth. And they have said over and over again in more than 100 self-accredited publications that we are not able to pay our debts and are heading for default. We were even ranked as the country with the highest risk of default in the world. El Salvador with more risk than Ukraine. Yeah, exactly. So to counter that narrative, we did exactly the opposite of not paying our debts. We offered to pay in advance, and that is why this month we'll be buying all of our 2023 and 2025 bonds that the holders want to sell, of course, at market price. And this just kind of goes on and on. There's a little bit more to this, but he just, again, goes into more that what else is being said in the media is that there are huge anti-Bitcoin protests. And what he points out, or what he says from his perspective, they've been anything but huge. But furthermore, their government approval rating is 85 to 90%, according to every poll that was conducted in the previous year, or last year, including several polls conducted by the opposition and several by independent international polling firms, if we were handling things so badly. And so he just kind of goes into this: stop drinking the elite's Kool-Aid and take a look at the facts. And it's just something I'm bringing it forward because it's something I'm trying to really focus on as well. It's not taking headlines for what they are, but really reading into these and reading into what's behind it, if there could be anything behind it. And so then he's kind of promoting his country. Come see the volcanoes, walk in the streets, transform yourself, breathe the fresh air. And it's pretty enticing. I kind of want to go. Yeah. And then he just kind of talks a little bit about ask yourself, why are the world's most powerful forces against these exact transformations, and why should they even care? And then he goes on to say that you see it now, right? The reason for all of this is because we're not simply fighting a local opposition or the usual roadblocks any small country may face, but the system itself for the future of mankind. And just goes on to say that El Salvador is the epicenter of Bitcoin adoption and thus economic freedom, financial sovereignty, censorship resistance, unconfiscatable wealth, and the end of the kingmakers, their printing, devaluating, and reassigning the wealth of the majorities to interest groups, the elites, the oligarchs, and the ones in the shadows behind them pulling their strings. If El Salvador succeeds, many countries will follow. If El Salvador somehow fails, which we refuse to, no countries will follow. They know this very well, and that's why they are fighting us so hard. And he says, will you play their game or will you become aware of the real game? So
Wow.
I really like this.
That's great.
I like the feel behind what he has here. It just is refreshing to even have something so in depth coming from a president.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that
Wow.
article,
Oh,
Scott?
I love that article. I love that article. And I did not see that anywhere. And that is a great article. Really cool. All the things you said, I just totally agree. I, you know, I don't know if I had read or all the detail about all the failings that the elite have been saying. I just had read a little bit about how Bitcoin wasn't really being adopted the way they had hoped, and in what they called Bitcoin Beach, there was a town or a place in El Salvador, right, where supposedly it kind of started the genesis of them deciding to take it on. There has been, again, news articles from, and this was, it might have been, it was, I don't know if it was CBS or it was some, news organization that had I don't know if it was a documentary or news program, but yeah, they basically were saying that nobody's really taking Bitcoin, and that the people aren't adopting it as much as they'd hoped. So that was about it, which kind of left a negative view in my mind, like, oh, it's not, taken off, like I thought. But then I read, and I think I even shared this article a few weeks ago on the show about how one county in El Salvador was allowing people to use Bitcoin to pay their taxes. And so I thought, okay, well, there's pockets of people that are adopting this. But that article is really interesting, really from the president and how he really, I. So let me ask you, is he saying that the reason? Well, he summarized at the end there, like why the elites are trying to take him down. Not just Bitcoin, which is one major area that the elites don't want to happen, but also freedom and not having a centralized government that plays by all the rules of the way governments normally do. They're trying to do something different, and they're being attacked for it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's, nobody wants to see, or in that, from that standpoint of that control. And I'm not saying our government's bad. I have hope for many aspects of our government, but I do think there's a lot of control there that doesn't want to be let up. And it's built upon underneath organizations that do want this control, that are kind of a global, it's
Yeah,
kind of a global organization. And so they don't want this to succeed, because why would they want to be able to lose their control
lose their
and
power.
not,
Yeah,
right. And there's so yeah, I think he's really just pointing out all the avenues that they try to get this information out, and this propaganda. And, he might be painting a picture that's prettier than it is there too. You have to keep that in mind. It's hard to say.
sure.
Mark
Yeah,
Moss, I don't know if you know who Mark Moss is, and he
no,
was a blog writer, and he's an investor, a crypto investor. He's one of the fastest growing YouTube channels, and he's really, really interesting to talk to, or not talk to. Maybe one day I'll talk to him, but to listen, to listen to. And he had a video, and he went to El Salvador and went to Bitcoin Beach, and he kind of shows a lot of this. And that was really interesting to see. And one of the things that he pointed out is that a lot of people don't have smartphones. And so
mm,
he had smartphones that were shipped, and he was teaching these people to learn how to use a smartphone, learn how to pay with Bitcoin. It was really cool. I'll actually post that in the description if anybody wants to look at it, I will post that once we're all done. But it was just interesting, and you could actually kind of see video into what's happening. And I mean, yeah, it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's hard to say. It's probably not
Right.
just running smoothly and everybody's just super happy and great about it. But it is refreshing to hear a perspective straight from a president's mouth that seems really. I think one thing I took from it is the perspective was so optimistic,
Yeah.
and it's one thing that I am missing here. That I just am missing when with our current with our current president. I don't want to get super political, but I
Yeah.
just hearing that optimism is something that was refreshing for me. So yeah, I don't know, kind of cool.
It is cool. I and I'm the same way too. I'm so excited about crypto and about the future and about what it can do. Now but and as I mentioned this before, I'm just there are things that are worrisome. Like this MEV thing. Kind of got down the rabbit hole, but also like the hacking issue. And I really kind of tie the two together in a certain way. It's just another way. And I just, I'm not a programmer, so, but I understand technically enough, what these projects take, how to code these things, or what it takes to do it. And I know that it's not easy. But I do get frustrated that there seems to be so many hacks and so like it kind of seems like Swiss cheese somehow, you know. And again, I don't want to blow it out of proportion because I'm sure there's millions and billions of transactions that are going through, and it's just this. It's beautiful to see. Like I was doing some yield farming, this week, like I said, and some in yield farming is interesting because you're sometimes your transactions, there are like 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 transactions that happen with one move because you're doing a lot of things in these transactions. And to go and look, you can look at the blockchain with Etherscan and these different scanning software, right? And you can just see all the stuff that's happening, just like it's magic. It almost looks like, like all these things that are automatically happening. And it's beautiful. But on the other hand, too, it's like, then so I'm going to briefly show an article. Binance got hacked. One of the largest exchanges, and that I'm like, oh boy, So I don't know. I guess again, you have to always remind yourself, and I have to remind myself, this is new technology. We're in the wild, wild west. It's cutting edge. And, especially as an educator and a teacher, I really make that clear, to new people that are getting into crypto, that that's what it is. But what I always say is, if you have some patience and you have belief and you can take advantage of amazing investment opportunities and returns that you can't get anywhere else, but you have to adopt a new mindset and you have to get out of your comfort zone, because you're your own banker, it's all on you. And there's really no help desk for the most part, right? And that's a beautiful thing in some ways, right? It's a little bit scary because there's nobody out there to help you, but also you have all the power. You don't have anybody telling you what to do. You don't have anybody putting restrictions on your money and your finances, shutting down your accounts, telling you who you can give money to or whatever. And I know, you're a big proponent of looking in and diving into CBDCs, which is it's another potential area that now governments are could use this technology kind of to do the opposite of what we're so excited about, right? They use it to kind of control us even more. And they're going to tout it as this, part of a decentralized thing, this wonderful thing for you guys, and it's going to use blockchain, and some people are going to buy into that, but you and I know that they can create their own sinister blockchains, to do all that. And as you know, I mean, you're diving into this, and hopefully you're going to continue to share that with us and become the CBDC expert, because we need people, to get in there and to make sure that we know the facts. It's kind of like this MEV thing. It's like, I just wanted to bring it up there too, because a lot of people know about it and they're not talking about it. And I don't want to alarm people too much, but for me, it was just a big aha, like, what? That really goes on? Like, boy, I didn't know that. It's just, and that's kind of why we do this. But like you, I feel like it's so easy to get sucked into the negative side of it, because it does grab the headlines. We are talking about news and it grabs the headlines. So one thing that we both try to do is definitely mix it up with positive articles and news. And this one was a great one. So good job on this one.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, that was well said. And I know that was a little bit long of an article, but so thanks for bearing with me. But I thought that was important to share. And I think, I mean, I've already gone half of the time with that one, so I think we should just. I don't have. Let's see what you have. Let's get my
Okay.
next one and see what you got.
Alrighty. We will do it. All right. So let's see. What do I got first? Oh, yeah. Let's start off with this one. So a fellow Kings member, King of DeFi, our friend Petya, I just saw this actually before we jumped on air, that she had posted about this article about how to get your ETH tokens before the merge. So if you held ETH before the merge, there is a way to then grab tokens because they apparently you had a one-to-one conversion and there were these leftover tokens that were on a new network, a new chain that was sort of created instantly after the merge, which was this Ethereum but on proof of work, still whole nother network, and that it's going up and down and it's doing its thing. And I was a little confused on this too. And in fact, it was interesting about this article because, let me see, let's get a little bigger here. So with this new Ethereum POW network, Ethereum holders are eligible to receive a single ETH W for every Ether they own. And the following is a simple guide and shows you how that you can get a hold of those tokens. And so it is pretty simple. I actually did it myself right before we got on here. But to explain it a little bit more, it says 16 days ago, the Ethereum transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake. Did anyone not know that? It's like we made a big deal out of that. It was a pretty big deal, but yes, that happened. But 16 days ago, yeah, or actually it's been longer than that. I think. Not sure when this article was written. So basically, it says some of the miners transitioned over to the new Ethereum proof of stake, but some of them wanted to stay and continue to do proof of work mining with Ethereum. And so, again, this is what's interesting about blockchain technologies is that it's open source software. So all you got to do is copy the software, and this is what forking is. When you've heard, a blockchain is forked, they basically just take a copy of that software and then they change one little address in it, and now it's a whole nother blockchain with a whole new address to it, and then they start behaving separately when they were one. So it's kind of interesting, kind of cool how this can happen. And so there's this bet out there, not a bet, but there's a lot of people say, well, is this going to work? I mean, why would they want to do that, or why would I want to invest in that? And I frankly don't personally see any reason to want to invest in that, but there are some maximalists in the proof of work consensus mechanism that probably love this, and they think that this is still a better way, and they don't want to move into a proof of stake network per se. So here's this new network. Now, what I don't fully understand is why we can transfer these tokens, but apparently you can, and I did it. Basically, this article will go into it, and I will also share and link this article because it does tell you how to do it. And you're basically just adding this new chain, this ETH W network to your MetaMask. So I don't know if anyone's done this before, but Again, when you're doing yield farming, I've now got in my MetaMask wallet, I have 10 different networks. It used to be just, I started off with the Ethereum network. Now I've got Avalanche, Polygon, you name it. And it's pretty simple, but it's another really cool thing about these decentralized wallets and decentralized networks. And it's getting better and better all the time. But I can use one wallet, MetaMask, and I can have 10 different chains and networks that I can pass money back and forth to, or money, assets. And so this shows, and it's a pretty easy way. It shows that you can't really read it in here, but you have the network name. You've got to have the network URL. The chain code is really important because I believe that it's 1001 and Ethereum is like 1000. Don't quote me on that, but that's one of the small changes that is a little bit different. And again, it's just the code, so now it's going to be directed to this new network. And you put that in your MetaMask, and boom. And so that's what I did. And I thought I would have more ETH in there, but it did show up. I had 0.133 of this new token in my MetaMask wallet. Turns out to be about 93 cents worth. I didn't realize I guess I didn't have that much ETH in there at the time because it had to be the ETH in my MetaMask wallet. So apparently now I can sell those. I could go and I could transfer them. I could sell them, for whatever. Now, I need to caveat this by saying that there's also a potential for some fraud to happen here, because knowing that this could happen and that this was going to happen, some fraudsters were taking this opportunity to airdrop tokens into people's wallets and kind of hiding under this sort of guise like, hey, you can redeem, this, and connecting it to this event of Ethereum. And when people would click on them and try to activate those or sell them or whatever, it would release malicious code into the wallet. And then basically what you're doing is you're giving them access to then access your wallet. And when that happens, they can just drain all your funds out. And so you have to be really careful. And in fact, I wasn't sure I was even going to do this at all. But when I realized all this was going to show me how to do was add the network to my MetaMask, I was not allowing or giving permission or anything to anything. All I did was add the network, and I thought, okay, I don't think that I can't get burned that way. So I did that. I added the network, and I see that I have these, a fraction of some tokens in there, some assets. But I don't think I'm going to do anything with them because I'm very cautious of this. I'm actually nervous about airdrops because, and I want to, before I do anything with tokens that are in my wallet, I want to know exactly where they came from. And in the most cases, I'm putting them there. I'm transferring them from, either Coinbase or, some other network or asset so I know they're in there. What happens is these malicious operators, if you will, they can actually drop tokens into your wallet, and a lot of times MetaMask won't show them because they're not standard, they're not big enough, to know. But you can always add into MetaMask these import a token, and if you know the address of the token, you can import it, and now MetaMask will show it, and you can see that token. So one way to do this, and that I've done this, is you can also then just click on the Etherscan or the scanning software in your wallet that'll take you to the Etherscan, and it'll show you all the assets in sort of code base that are in your wallet, which I did. I didn't see anything that was strange, to me for the most part, but a lot of it is sort of coded and it's hard. So again, I'm not making any decisions on that. And I guess I'm throwing this out here just to give people, if you've never done this before or whatever, just again, a caution about using MetaMask wallets and decentralized wallets. And again, that this world is so new that as much as we learn and think we understand things, new things happen so fast. It's almost like you kind of get a handle on how to use a MetaMask wallet, and then boom, next thing you know, there's all these new ways that, malicious actors can, take advantage of you. So the bottom line is, the message is, from me, is be very careful about tokens that get dropped or new tokens that you don't know about, that you didn't put there. I know people that have gained a ton of assets from airdrops and legitimate airdrops and from investing in tokens. And then these chains want to reward their loyal investors, especially if you got in early on an asset or a token. They'll airdrop some more tokens for you. It's a legitimate function, but now again, just like anything else, malicious actors, can take advantage of it, and they are. So I'm just very cautious about this. So Petya, if you're listening, as I know you probably will, I would go ahead and we, I can walk you through this, putting the chain in there. But I think I need to do more research still, and other people that watch this, that have more research about, okay, now you can see the tokens in your MetaMask wallet, but cashing them out, getting them into something else it's another level that I'm not comfortable with yet on how to do that or how to safely do that. So that might be the next step. So Petya had asked, does anybody have more information about this? So I have a little bit, but not the full picture. So hopefully more to come on that. What do you think about that? Did that all make sense? And have you done this yourself?
A number of things. So number one, Petya, that could be we should maybe do a live one with you walking through that. Well, I don't know how if it would show the MetaMask, but if we can cut that out, that might be interesting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't display anything that it shouldn't. MetaMask, it's one that I really appreciate having, but I have had just funkiness with it. I've had, and still to this day, I have different tokens displaying on my phone than I do on my computer. So it's like one is not all the way updated. I only have 2 chains on mine. I haven't done much with it for a long time. I'm actually really interested in learning more. And I also appreciate you explaining forking, because I've read that and it does not make any sense. So you put it in a really simple way that makes sense. And, one other person that just reminded me of that I would love to bring on as a guest, who's really goes really far into security, super in depth, talks a lot about airdrops and the dangers behind airdrops as well. And he also uses a specific computer for these transactions, separate from what he would do anything else on. And I think he even has multiple computers for multiple things, just to keep that security. Maximize that security. So that would be good to have him on here to talk more about that as well. So yeah, that was good. Good article.
Yeah, and like I said, I just kind of hit upon that at the last minute, but I thought it'd be interesting, informative, hopefully for people. So okay, let's move on here. What else do I have? So here's the article about BNB chain resumes service after hacker siphons at least 100 million. Boy, this one caught me. This is one of the big chains, and but there is a little. I was surprised, but now that I read the article a little bit more, I'm not as surprised of how it happened. But it's interesting because they were able to they were somehow able to get their hands on or try to get 560 million of BNB tokens. Or in BNB tokens, but they halted the chain. And again, this is another thing. There's some controversy a little bit between people saying, hey, this is a decentralized, network. You're not supposed to be able to just shut these things down like the government could do. But I don't know how I feel about this, because in this case, they were able to stop things. So the hacker couldn't get, any more. And it was like 30 minutes and then they started it back up again, So I don't know how I feel about that, because some good and bad things, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I'll just sort of say, I think that there's got to be both sides of all these issues, decentralized, centralized, I just don't think we're going to get one full decentralized situation with everything. I think eventually there'll be compromises where we'll have a better system, a more decentralized, more transparent system. But will it be completely decentralized and transparent? I don't know. I don't know if that's just ever realistic. And that's sort of how I live in the world, politically and everything. I'm a centrist. It's like I don't live on the extreme side. So it makes perfect sense for me to be some sort of combination of both. And here's a good example where a little bit of centralization might be a good thing. But what's interesting, it says hackers attempted to drain 560 million BNB tokens overnight from the BSC token hub, the network's cross-chain bridge, and therein lies the issue. It appears to me, and it's been appearing to me over and over, and this really seals it for me, is that the bridging is really the worst, most vulnerable area in crypto right now. And one of the things that's helping proliferate crypto, and the fact that crypto needs to be made easier for end users, because it's pretty complicated and confusing, and for it to be adopted in the mass, it's going to need to be made more simple. And being able to take tokens from one blockchain into another one is important to make things simple. And so bridges make sense to bridge from one blockchain to the other one, so that you can move tokens back and forth from networks, and you've got lots of different DeFi protocols and protocols that are all picking different chains, and you got to get your fiat from your Coinbase or wherever you have it, and it's got to go into, say, your MetaMask wallet, which is an Ethereum network. But now you want to work on a DeFi protocol on the BNB network. You've got to get your money over to the other chain, and so these bridges do that. But boy, they are vulnerable. This is where most of the hacks are coming. They're in a bridge. And I was thinking, when I first saw this article, I thought, oh, this is interesting. They didn't lead off with the bridge. It just said BNB, or the BCS chain had been hacked or compromised. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But again, once I saw this, makes perfect sense. Every blockchain has bridges to all other blockchains, and apparently, and again, if I can find the bandwidth, I'll go down the rabbit hole and dive into why, because that's my question, is why are these bridges so vulnerable? What makes them vulnerable? And if they are really one of the central areas in crypto, again, we have this area that seems to be necessary, is completely used, all blockchains are using them, and it seems to be obvious that this is a huge problem. And I just don't see enough articles, and I listen to podcasts and articles all day about crypto. And yeah, people are talking about them, but more like we're talking about them. We're kind of like, we don't really know, but we're reporting it, we're talking about it. Well, where are the people that know? Where are the coders? Where are the builders? Where the heck are you people? It's like, why aren't you talking about this? Now, there is one guy I heard, a really young guy, and I'll have to track him down because this was a long time ago. Months ago, as a really young guy, but just smart as hell. And he was basically saying, I'd heard this 8 months ago, that chains were, very vulnerable. And I know he's doing some things, to help, sort that out. But BNB, one of the largest blockchains, their bridge gets, hacked. Whew, that means pretty much any of them can. So again, I'm just going to say we got to be aware of this, but one of the things is, I know that you guys are out there. You smart people, builder, you're out there. I know you're out there. And maybe, you're just keeping, things close to your vest or whatever, because you're not letting us know. But let us know. Give us some more good information, out there about the good things you're doing to help protect this. And, we all know that if we can't get this part fixed, just like all the hacking, who's going to want to adopt crypto? How are we going to get, Goldman Sachs and some of these, big firms to come into crypto if they can't even be sure that their funds are going to be safe? They don't worry about that in traditional finance. So why would they come into crypto? So again, try not to be too negative, but excuse me. Yeah. So let's get on that. Any comments on that, Brianna?
I'm picturing trolls under these bridges and
oh, that's a meme. You got to create a meme. Let's create a meme about that.
We should. We need some construction. We're calling for construction on the bridges, please. Calling for construction.
Calling for construction. And we'll just put it out calling all coders and, really smart techie people. Let's get this figured out.
One thing I will say that when I read that, I did read that article. I almost shared it. I almost chose it. And I had a feeling once I got to the bridges and all that, I was like, Scott's probably got this one. And I did appreciate the way that the founder went on and tweeted, your funds are safe and
Yeah.
kind of what's going on. And that's something that we just learn, I guess, with time, that that's the right thing to do versus what happened with Celsius, just
Right.
ignoring and not showing up to press conferences.
Right.
And so that was appreciated when I read that. But no, you're right. It needs to be resolved. And I'm sure there are people working on it, but please, yes, let us know what you're doing, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see less of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost forgot here. I have no way to communicate back to you guys, but I saw a couple comments. One of my old high school friends, Bob. How you doing, Bob? If you're still watching, good to see you here. And Lucy, thank you for commenting in. Thank you for tuning in, and hope you stay for the whole show and get some value out of it and spread the news if you like it. So thank you for listening. And if you're listening, and just pop in a comment. For some reason, I can't respond back to you, but I want to acknowledge you, and then after the show, I'll respond. Okay, let's see. What else do we got here? All right, here's an interesting one. Get this bigger. So as I've mentioned many times on here, I lost some money in the Terra collapse. Not a fortune, which thank God it was early. Still in my crypto education. And it wasn't really the amount of money that I lost in this situation. It was the faith that I lost in stablecoins, and it really rocked my world because thought I was in the safest place I could be because I had my money in the stablecoin, and I didn't understand. I thought I understood the difference between algorithmic stablecoins and non, but I didn't. And obviously, I wasn't the only one. A lot of people got burned. This almost took down crypto. This is the other thing. It's quite interesting because it rocked crypto. But again, that's what's awesome is that crypto is resilient and took the hit and is back and will be back stronger than ever. But from this, it's interesting because MakerDAO is the owner, the creator of a stablecoin called DAI, and it's been around before Terra. It's been around a long time, and it's doing fine. But it is interesting. There's people always kind of questioning, what's going on with stablecoins. So I always find it interesting. I try to pay attention, when I can to stablecoins because I don't want to make that mistake again, where I didn't understand what was going on in something that I was investing in. And so I actually have not played around with DAI that much because, again, I'm still so shy a little bit. I do use USDC. I think we all have to use stablecoins to some degree. Right now, USDC seems, in my estimation, sort of the safest, stablest. It appears to be backed up by a lot of external assets. I say appear because no one quite is getting the full story from any not everybody, but always just a lot of information out there. But right now, I use USDC. But what's cool about this is that they've been around for 5 years uninterrupted. But some have called the way DAI does this is they've got this over collateralization. They call it capital inefficient, or some people do. And one of the MakerDAO's protocol engineers says, well, that's why DAI has become the largest, longest running decentralized stablecoin on the market because we're doing this with overcapitalization. And usually that typically means that you've got to have more money or more assets held than you can borrow against. And this really isn't necessarily a borrowing situation, but it is something that basically you deposit an asset and then DAI gets minted, and it is pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar. So basically, you're getting $1 worth of DAI. It says launched in 2017 that the overcollateralization means that each dollar of DAI in circulation is backed by more than a dollar in another cryptocurrency. So that's just interesting. That it's minted instantly like that, and but they've also got other assets that back it up, and that is sort of like USDC, but the mechanism is a little bit different. And I don't know all the details of the mechanism how this gets minted, but Terra had some of the same flavor of this because basically, it was pegged to algorithmically to their coin Luna. So you'd buy Luna, and when you'd sell Luna, it would mint the UST and vice versa. You sell UST and would mint Luna, and this would try to balance it out and keep it pegged at a dollar. And it just didn't work, because once massive quantities hit the market to sell, the algorithm couldn't keep up, and as we know, the whole thing crashed. So this isn't like that, necessarily. There are external real assets that are backed also by DAI. It says, from the first principles for the design of the entire system, we've gone for resilience and safety. And again, so this is good. I like hearing, this, really. And it says the over collateralization design means that for each dollar of DAI in circulation, it's backed by more than. No, I already read that. So it has having more collateral than there is DAI circulating keeps the system from falling apart should crypto markets swoon and dive as they are now, and as we found out with Tether, or with UST. The design is quite different from Tether, USDT, and Circle. It says those are centrally collateralized off chain, so they've got off-chain assets that are backing those. And in this case with DAI, everything is minted on chain. So you've got other crypto assets, right, that are backing this. So people will give US dollars to a custodian like Circle, and then they will mint USDC against that. This is about like USDC. This is an IOU that can later be redeemed for US dollars that they originally deposited. Those centralized stablecoins are also reportedly backed by more traditional finance instruments like treasury bills and actual dollars rather than assets. It says Maker's design also differs dramatically from the smoldering stablecoin experiment that was Terra UST. We know in May, UST, which had a $18.6 billion market cap and was the fourth largest stablecoin, it imploded. It says unlike Tether and Maker's DAI, UST was just an algorithmic stablecoin backed by a unique burning and mint mechanism tied to Terra's governance token, the Luna. Let me move on here. Let's see, because we know about that. No reason to go over that painful situation again. It says, I don't think it's quite so extreme that we need to become a regulated bank. Now, here's the part that's a little fuzzy still for me. Again, if there's any DAI experts, chime in here and let us know in the comments or, afterwards. It says there's a middle ground that DAI has always maintained, where you get the best of all worlds, where we're actively investing into real-world assets that are regulated companies. So DAI is investing, or MakerDAO is investing in real-world assets. They're investing in companies, so they're taking their proceeds, and I don't understand if this is part of what backs DAI or just makes them a robust entity, that can't be taken down as easily. So it says alongside various decentralized cryptocurrencies, a portion of DAI is also backed by assets like freight forwarding invoices and trade receivables from real companies in the meat space, which I find interesting. So the engineer's middle ground would thus continue to onboard more business into crypto while maintaining the permissionless decentralized protocol as its core. And amid a broader regulatory crackdown, he hopes to see regulation that prevents events like Terra rather than swiping with a giant axe that harms a lot of well-intentioned projects in the space. So what he's saying, right, is that, they're just, regulation now is out of control again. It's just, they're trying to just whack anybody they can kind of pinpoint and target instead of having and creating logical, open sourced standards that we can all follow. They just won't publicize those. They just start grabbing people and trying to make examples of people. And so what he's saying is that we want regulation, but let's be smart about it. So anyways, it's kind of a hit and miss article about DAI. It's just interesting because what they're trying to do is become like a bank where they will help finance local projects or business projects. So again, they're trying to merge these two worlds, but stay in this decentralized economy and ecosystem, which is so interesting. But they want to play and lend out to other companies and to other banks. And so people have called MakerDAO they might be the centralized, like a real bank, but again, a decentralized bank that plays in the decentralized world. All assets are on chain, which is a little bit different than some of these CeFi protocols that do buy and sell assets that are on chain, but they're not disclosing where those assets are backed up for, like Celsius and some of these other CeFi projects that have collapsed, basically. So it's interesting. MakerDAO is definitely a company that I think we all in the crypto space should follow. They are leading a path. They're trailblazers, and they are important, I think, in crypto going forward. And I think this experiment of, again, trying to bridge the decentralized world of crypto into real world assets, into real world businesses, I think it's important. We want that. We just want to make sure that it's done the right way. And I think MakerDAO is going slow. I think I like them a lot. Have you ever invested in DAI or had any DAI?
I have. Not a lot, but a little bit. And that I did a liquidity pool, and this was back, and I was learning all about Maker and their role in the ecosystem. And it was interesting. And I kind of had to choose between, back at this time, the beginning of this year, I had to choose between using USDT and DAI and maybe USDC. And I remember choosing DAI specifically because at that time I did some research, which also at that time and still at this time, and this is where I'm at with stablecoins, is I feel like I don't know exactly what I need to know. So I can read stuff about it and I'm like, oh, that all sounds great. I know it was different with UST. There were a lot of people who were saying, the algorithmic stablecoin is going to fail. But then you had so many people that were using it. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, it's still, it's going strong, and it was up there, higher than ever. And so people were still using it. And I think that's one lesson that I learned. I wasn't in UST, but I learned that is, sometimes you don't know exactly what you need to know in this. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me too, and why I appreciate those, I can't remember what they're called. You did an article on it months ago or a while ago, on those white collar, I think that's what they were called, the white collar or white hat hackers.
White collar hackers. Yeah. White hat hackers. Mm-hmm.
And they're paid to hack and try to find the holes so that the hackers don't do that. Because there's always these things. Right. You have to wonder, and I don't know anything about coding. I don't know anything about the technical side of anything. So, it's hard to say, but I do, it's kind of like you said, like it would be nice if in the dream world, I like to talk about if we had everybody kind of working toward like, oh, here's how we can better this and do better, with these holes that may exist in this protocol. But there's always that competition, or those, what did you call them? Fraudsters. Those fraudsters.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but fraudsters. Yeah, no, that.
But yeah, I do like that. I think they have, it sounds like, just from what you said in that article, they have a year's worth of strong reputation behind them. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, in an industry that doesn't have a lot of that. It hasn't been around that long, so anybody that we can, see that's been around that long and things are working, and that they're also trying to, move forward and better the ecosystem is good. So you could see I was shining. My head was like so glaring I couldn't even see. So I fixed my camera so I'm not like glaring so much there off my bald head. All right, so we're out of time, but we can't not talk about this. And I'm sure you know what it is, but come on. Oh yeah, the top part of it. We got to talk about Kim K. I mean, that was all over the news, right? I'm surprised you didn't want to bring this one up. You saw this, right?
I saw a headline, but I didn't go into it. I didn't. And actually, wow. I had a distinctive thought about it. That's funny. I think that was last night I saw it. So yeah, let's enlighten us.
Here we go. So she had to pay a $1.26 million fine to U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Settled charges relating to a promotion of a token called Ethereum Max. It was a digital token. And they basically said that she did not disclose. So basically she tweeted out saying this was an awesome coin. And I don't know exactly what the tweet is, but how she did it. But she just said, "Hey, this is a great coin," and uh, this is. She did put in a hashtag of like, I can't remember what it was, like this is an ad or this is advertising or whatever. But basically, she just touted the coin and tried to use her influence, right, to help sell more of that token, which happens all the time in everything, all the products or whatever. So what's interesting about this article, and the reason that I really did want to talk about it a little bit, was that she was paid $250,000 for that endorsement, which even isn't that much really for her to endorse things, on her Twitter. And the SEC said, and this is part of this also is pointing out what the SEC, it's sort of insidious how it's doing this. It's just picking any target they can find to try to make an example to get their point across that, hey, you crypto people need to watch out. We're coming after you. Now, she just settled. She didn't go to court. She didn't do anything because the argument was that, and this article actually doesn't talk about it. I read it in another article. The issue is if you're going to, so what Gary Gensler basically was saying is that she's not a financial advisor, so you can't take her advice for buying an investment product. Now, I think he is saying that EtherMax, this token or whatever, is a security, which obviously for him, that makes it really simple to go after her because she was touting this. It's a security. You really can't do that. Now, the difference is that if and this is where somebody made this really defined line in there, is that if you're to promote, so yeah, this is what it was. So if you remember back the Super Bowl ads of last year and the year before, where Crypto.com, I think they had Matt Damon, and who else was it? There was a couple other celebrities that were promoting the heck out of crypto projects. The difference is those weren't tokens. They were promoting Crypto.com, a centralized business that actually dealt in crypto. So what Kim Kardashian did was she was trying to shill a coin, a token, and that's what got her into trouble. And so that is interesting, a fine line, because Matt Damon and some of these other celebrities have been talking about crypto forever, and but that's the difference. And of course, it goes to the SEC's point. It's like, hey, these cryptos are securities, and he's pretty much they're saying anything but Bitcoin is security, needs to be gone through all of that protocol that a normal security or a stock would go through. And the problem we know with that is that it would. Well, I don't know what they could really do with all the existing tokens and coins out there. I mean, they'd have to go through some sort of process to become a security. It would change a lot of things in crypto. I'm not saying it's actually even personally, just my opinion of what I understand, that it's a terrible thing that this could happen. We can still have crypto. Things will still work. They'll just be more like stocks, but we'll still be able to, work in the ecosystem of blockchain and decentralization. It's just that what it will do is it will dampen down creativity and because it's pretty easy for people to come up with new ideas and just put them out in the blockchain. Good and bad, right? Because the fact that the barrier to entry in crypto is not that big. You can create code, create a project, get people to invest in your token. That allows really creative people to get out there and get projects going. And some will get momentum, but some won't. And the problem is, investors, we have no protection like you do in the business world or in traditional finance. So if people are really good marketers, and this has happened over and over in crypto, people will market these wonderful products. People invest, believing in all this great marketing, and then either they're crooks and they had no product really anyways, and they were just going to get the investment and take off, which happened a lot in the 2018, 2017 timeframe. Or it's just that they had no ill intent. It's just it didn't work. Their code didn't work, or their idea, which maybe seemed promising. Maybe another big player came in. I mean, this is what happens in business, right? So again, there's a lot of mixed feelings about regulation. I think there's some good things and some bad things. We just have to do it smartly. And unfortunately, what's happening now is that they're just grabbing low-hanging fruit like Kim Kardashian to make a point. She had to pay $1.6 million or whatever. I mean, she only made $250,000 on this. So it's like, come on, But this is what's happening. They're just out there just throwing spaghetti on the wall to see whoever they can, target and make an example so that, people are like, oh, we better watch out, crypto world. It's not the best way to do it. Doesn't seem like a smart way, but this is the way that Gary Gensler and the Fed are doing it, or the SEC. And, unfortunately, it just, to me, looks stupid. It makes them look stupid, I mean, just put out some guidelines and we'll all follow it. Like we want to follow the rules, but we don't know what the rules are. And that's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And that's where, like you said, it's like, so Kim Kardashian, and I see it, you see it with the guy with Tornado Cash too. I mean, he's in jail and they're just making these examples. And of course they're going to choose what's going to really grab people and that a lot of people make news. And it's also something too, a lot of people, one thing about crypto, and it's something that I love about crypto is, and it's part of that paradigm shift. It's the opposite of convenience. It's the opposite of not doing your research. You can't just go by headlines. You can't just go by a tweet. I mean, you can. Elon Musk does it all the time. So It's funny that he's getting away with it. And it might be a little bit different than how Kim did it. But it is. It's just one big learning lesson. And there was the other article that I was going to share, and I'm not going to share it, but it did go into this founder of a project. I can't remember. It wasn't one that I've heard of. But it starts with an A. Anchorage, I want to say. Anchorage, that's what it was. And they were going through Singapore's regulations, trying to get things worked out. And they said how easy that all was, because there's one regulator, where they said with the United States, there's 15 regulators. And they just said it's impossible. She says it's impossible because you don't get anywhere. And not only that, where they're getting caught up is the political side. So whether it's right or left, and that's just like what her point was, is that it's not either. It's gold. It's gold. And just removing, trying to remove these sides to it all. And it is, I guess we'll see how that plays out and whether that's going to affect, if that political side affects the way these regulations roll out. Only 2 more years, guys, and maybe we'll get a pro-crypto candidate in there, and that'll be great. But it's all a learning lesson for now. I think it's even getting more wild than it's been. I was looking forward for regulations, but now I'm kind of missing the good old days of just doing it like without having to worry about.
That's why you live in the West. You live in the wild, wild West.
I do. I'm trying to keep it wild in the West here.
Keep it wild. Oh, that's a good one. Brianna wants to keep it wild. Just remember that, people. No, it's all good. Yeah, no, I agree. Interesting thing about, good and bad on the regulation side. And we'll see what happens. We have to stay positive, try to stay positive. But I think it's good, that we're gonna bring forth this information and try to just put it out there, but as positive as we can, because we do. Both of us want to stay positive in our lives, and we love this space, so we're not trying to bash it by any means. We want it to proliferate, and some of this stuff it seems to be getting in the way, and like I said, some of the hacking stuff seems to me like I just scratch my head like, why haven't we got this thing figured out? And unlike the MEV problem, which is kind of this hidden thing people don't know about, and spilling some of it also, it's like this was theorized years ago that it could be a problem, but it's just now actually reality becoming a problem, and so people didn't really pay attention to it because it wasn't happening that much. It was affecting just a little bit. But now it's starting to get to the point where people are noticing it, and if left unchecked, could be a big problem. The hacking thing's been around forever. I don't understand why that just isn't taking more precedence. But again, this is negative, but it comes down to money. There's a lot of money in just putting projects out there. Maybe there's not a lot of money in solving these problems. But if we all want the crypto space to move forward, this has to get done. So, I mean, part of this is just us normal, everyday people that love crypto. We just want to pressure in a good way, to have this happen. Now, regulation, it's interesting, this all ties together. Regulation is one way to shore that up, but it isn't the only way. Let's internally, crypto project builders, let's get our ship in order so we don't have to have as much regulation. The hackers, it wasn't so easy to hack, I don't think there'd be as much regulation issues, in the news right now.
Yeah, let's get ourselves set up for success. And I mean, so much of that too. And we know this. You probably heard this argument. I know as well as, there's things that happen in crypto. There's things that happen with fiat. There's things that happen. Bad things happen everywhere. Bad things happen on boats. Bad things happen on airplanes. Like bad things just happen everywhere. It's an issue that's kind of at the core. We're not going to get rid of that until that's really addressed. You can't put, no matter how many Band-Aids you put on things, it doesn't solve the problem. So bringing in the regulations, hopefully it will help with at least getting these projects set up to make sure nobody's just sitting out there. And that's where that greed comes in. That's the core of the problem. The people who just for convenient, they copy the code and then they're going to use it for their own gains. And people were getting away with a lot of rug pulls there for a while. I don't know if that's changed because people saw this opportunity. And then you could get someone, like Kim Kardashian, not saying that that's what happened with hers, but you can get somebody to prop this up, and then you can, a lot of people can lose a lot of money that way. A lot of people can make a lot of money that way. And so, we'll just see how it plays out. But it is frustrating, and we want to stop
the hacking about the rug pulls.
And
it's a good thing about point about the rug pulls. I do think there's less of that, and it made me think of that because I think there's less of it because of the awareness. People in the early days of it, people didn't know what was going on. And I think a lot of people like you and I started talking about it, and so that's why this is good. We need to talk about this stuff because it needs to get exposed, it needs to get out there, and it needs to be more people to say, hey, we need to do something about this. And again, I'm not sure what real power is that we have about it, but rug pulls I think went down because of the awareness of it. And ICO, the ICOs or whatever, that whole era, that now is an era that has gone past, so people got smart, to it. And so that's what we're doing. We're saving the crypto world, Brianna, you and me, one show at a time.
We are, and we're going to keep doing it. And with
we
our
are,
audience, thanks again,
we are.
Guys, for
thanks everybody. And again, post in here. There's smart people listening to this. Post in there, give us a comment, like, what you've heard. What are some projects that are really taking, making bridges, more secure, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. So chime in. And thanks again. All right, so see you next time, Brianna. Have a great week, and let's go crypto. See you, everybody.
Let's go crypto. All right, thanks, guys. Have a